Hello, everybody. This is an unplanned, unannounced live. I just got home from Club Pilates, and I've been having this subject on my mind for a few days. And I thought before I start going back to work for the rest of the week for 3 days, that I would just hop on here and make a video. Quite frankly, it's just getting a lot easier for me to just hop on my computer and make a video or make a live and then click done and not go into my software and add a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of people are interested in love spells, and I thought, since Valentine's Day is coming up, right? It's right now February 4th. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And many people get drawn to YouTube for spells, for spell work, for love spells, for revenge spells, all of these things that they really should be like decoding our dreams, an opportunity to analyze, to self-analyze what's really going on with us. Now, I've said before, I think there's an epidemic of loneliness. People are trying to grow spiritually. And really the best way to do that is to get into a relationship. You don't get into a relationship just to feel loved. When you enter a relationship, you find out whether you have things in common or you don't. In many ways, you're going to choose someone who's going to mirror either your challenges, right? Where you need to grow, where you need to learn how to adapt, or just really discover who you are. And there's Jade. There's Jade. She just has to be up here involved. Notice me. I'm jealous. I don't have a chair. All right. So you first have to look at that. No one is going to rescue you. No one is going to save you. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do a love spell. Now, I have mentioned in videos that I've never, ever been interested in doing a love spell. And in fact, was turned off by the idea of choosing a target and doing a love spell because I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. However, as I began working with the goddess Astarte and hearing about different ways to use influence, okay? I'm all about influence, mental mind influence in positive ways. If you can influence someone to do something, is sort of a way to negotiate. Sometimes you want to make sure that you are coming off in the best possible way for an interview. And you could do a little love spell to make the person who's going to interview you feel a rapport, that you can naturally have some type of a connection. You know, you answer the questions well. You know how to ask them the proper questions and not the improper questions. So there's a lot that goes into it. I recently watched a video from someone who has said that a lot of people make the mistake of trying to think or trying to actually make a binding or even add blood, and they choose a target. And this is where people run into real problems, because what happens is you basically can end up just binding yourself to another person. But they don't necessarily feel, they're not doing a binding to you. There's no agreement. It's a very one-sided action. And it's really about control. And when you don't know enough about what that means, control is an illusion. It's never worked, and it never will. The best type of a love spell to do would be like a road opener, an orange candle, maybe a black candle, to eliminate negativity and to make statements that you have spent time analyzing what you are wanting to explore in the form of a relationship. Maybe you don't know yet what it means to have a relationship, but that you're open to what it means to meet someone and learn about what it means to be in a balanced relationship with someone where you are a friend and you're not just, wanting to get someone to do things that you would like. Okay. That would be one of the best ways. Now, what I did was initiate with Astarte on a solar eclipse, and I had no idea it was a solar eclipse. I just felt it was time to initiate with her, and I drew the sigil, and on the back I wrote, I just wanted a compatible mate, a compatible male in the flesh. And then I burned it. Now, that's almost like a loaded request, because you could meet someone that you're not necessarily initially compatible with. It could be a false start, and then you think, oh, it didn't work, when in fact the spell could be in progress. And sometimes there are obstacles that have to be overcome in order for the two people to actually find that there's a road that's open now for them to have more of a commitment and take the relationship longer or take it to the next level. So it depends on where you are. If you've never had a relationship, or you've had a relationship and you've analyzed. I heard one person say on YouTube that if you keep, falling out of relationships and keep looking for love and keep doing love spells and they just don't seem to keep working out, maybe it's not the other person. Maybe it's you. And we have to stop and look sometimes in the mirror and say, is it worth me trying to continue with someone who's got obstacles that they refuse to get over? Hello, there's somebody here. I have a very unplanned, unprepared, unannounced live, and I said I'm being lazy because it's easier for me just to hop on here and create a live and just let it be done when I'm done. All right, so they didn't say hello. I didn't give a name. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and give a shout out to Black Witch Savannah, who just made a video about love spells. She couldn't have said it any better, really. You have to be careful. You don't know anything necessarily about the target. Maybe you do. Maybe you think you do. And the reality is there has to be a certain level of maturity and being able to handle responsibilities. You're going to be sharing your time and your energy and your life basically with someone to get to know them. And they've got a life path of their own. And if they've got turbulence and they've got problems going on, are you going to run at the first sight of a setback? So, one of the things that brings people really together and strengthens the bond is when the other one is helping the other solve a problem. Oh, what happened to my microphone? I unplugged it. All right. I bought a microphone, so I'm going to use it. I think it will give better sound for the playbacks. I don't know if you are, interested. This person keeps coming and going. I think I know who it is. Right? There has to be a level of maturity and what it means to be a responsible person, not only for yourself, but for another human being. And that doesn't always work. And people just want someone to share their life with or share their expenses with. There can be a lot of chaos and drama. So anyway, Savannah said, the problem is when people choose a target, do a binding, and even worse, add blood. It's much better to do different kinds of love spells where you want to open yourself up to attracting someone who has the same interests, the same goals, the same hobbies, and the same interests and desires. Now, I don't think, from what I've learned, that one person should be your everything, your all and your everything. They shouldn't necessarily, we shouldn't expect them to want to do everything that we do or like to do. For example, if my partner doesn't like to go shopping, well, I've got to find a shopping buddy. If my partner doesn't like to go skating, then I've got to find a skating buddy. If my partner doesn't like to go for walks or roller skating or whatever, bowling. Now, there does need to be some things that your partner wants to do with you, such as putting together a puzzle. These things actually help relationships form a bond. And if you start seeing competitiveness in trying to put a puzzle together, this can be a sign of someone who is not understanding the importance of just really helping one another to get this puzzle put together. That's problem solving, right? Also, if you are familiar with the Shakespeare play, The Tempest, it's brilliant. I think Shakespeare was a shaman. Anyway, I think Prospero hired a young man to help him do work, get work done. And this young man declared that he was in love with Prospero's daughter. Now, men fall in love through their eyes. This is just the way they were made. Women fall in love through their ears. This is not a bad thing. It depends on how it is followed up with. A man sees a woman, he feels an automatic attraction, and there's a reason. for that. Why? Because we learn and we grow through each other. But Prospero said, back off, slow down. And I think put him through a series of tests. Why? Because it takes a level of maturity and dealing with hardships and setbacks to survive a relationship. And once this young man had proven himself, he said, all right, you can start dating my daughter, or be with my daughter. She wants to be with you too. So it was a two-way street, but it could have ended in disaster if there was some type of a hardship or something that came up. And then all of the older grown-ups end up having to intervene and take over because these two don't know how to deal with whatever it is that's happened. So if you're looking for someone to casually date, this is what you would word in your spell. If you're looking for someone to date regularly, singularly, then this is what you would write. But also someone that has things in common and, has some of the same interests and goals and hobbies and is looking to be in a relationship or a committed relationship or is looking to get married. These are things that you would specifically word in your spell. And this is why it's so important to know how to word your spells. Now, sometimes you can rekindle a love that you've already got with someone if the two of you agree to do a little love spell together. Now, two of you are agreeing to work on having feelings for one another. But if there are some deep-seated issues in the relationship, this is probably just a Band-Aid solution, right? And there comes a time when not even a man is going to settle just for sex because the wife is just so not compatible for him or what he's looking for. So yeah, if you're looking for someone to just massage your ego or acquire things, then there's going to be your own particular lessons of learning with that person. So years ago, I actually bought this little tiny book at Victoria's Secret. Now, they say purple candles, which, I've already said just yesterday, that purple is really to activate the pineal gland. And this is where you might have luck in visualizing what kind of a relationship you want. Not necessarily the kind of woman you want, because it's really best to leave it up to the universe to decide who is best for you. If you have found someone that you have this love at first sight attraction to, then obviously the next step is to introduce yourself, try to ingratiate yourself to that person, make a comment about something they're doing, or, ask them a question and compliment them for their intelligence. So one of the spells in here is for two people to agree. Red is a good color, of course. So you would light a red candle and you would put some red roses. And you could call on either a spirit or a deity like Astarte, or Lakshmi or some other deity for love, possibly for family if you want to get married and actually have a child in a committed relationship. But there has to be an open road. Very seldom does it work out for someone to try to be jumping into a new relationship because they're trying to get out of an older one that they haven't really officially separated from legally. I told my friend that poor people don't have a lot of choices, and that's a reality, okay? So there are times when people do that. They do break away from someone and they cheat, and that obviously gets the message to the other one. It breaks their heart. And so then the door is closed and the two of them go their opposite directions. With people that have money, they're able to go and move out and go get another residence. They can pay for that new residence. They can still pay for the one that their current partner is living in, file for a legal separation, right? And even pay temporary alimony to the one that's living there until the divorce is final. And so once they've moved out of the residence, they're freer to be entering into a relationship with someone, especially if both of them agree that the relationship is dead and they know it's time to move on. Then it's just a matter of going through the processes of opening the road. So then one moves out, gets another residence, maybe continues to pay for the one that the woman is in, right? Files for a legal separation, maybe pays alimony if you're in California. And then when the time comes, either they have to move out or the house has to be sold, and the judge decides who gets however much, and then they go on with their lives. That doesn't mean that the other one isn't already involved with someone that they were seriously interested in. And I've heard about this from Real Housewives of, I believe it's Beverly Hills. Yeah. And that was a sore spot for this couple. However, one was legally separated when he was involved with his new woman who he fully intended to marry. And so she continued the relationship as he was going through his divorce and they were living in a separate residence. It's still recommendable to have as open of a road as you possibly can. You've got to sever the ties with who you're with before you start something new with somebody else. A lot of times, if you've ever seen this show Cheaters, people who go off to cheat because they don't want to be with the person they're with anymore. And it's very difficult to get through to them or to move away from them. And they get with someone who they are crazy about, and they could even move in with them. And then they find out that he still had a live-in relationship with another person and never fully broke it off. And so then there's a confrontation. And of course, then it's over. But then the new girlfriend thinks he's nothing but a cheat. And it took quite some time for this man to convince her that he didn't want anybody else. He hadn't been dating anybody else. And he just didn't know how to break it off except for her to see him with somebody else and have a nasty confrontation, and that it's not really the way to go. It's much better if the man takes charge of the situation and breaks it off in as many ways as possible and makes it clear, I'm in my own place, I'm starting my life, and we are over, right? So you can start a new relationship. But do you possess what it takes to really be in a grown-up relationship? Do you possess maturity? Are you selfish? Do you just want someone to be a housemaid? Are you looking for a mother figure? Traditional is different from choosing a lifestyle where I agree to maintain the home because you're providing the housing. That doesn't make us a housemaid. It's the mindset, right? There's a mindset there that's got to be respectful both ways. And anyone who expects the other one to give more than the other is not ready for a relationship. The obstacles that may be in front of you are there for a reason. You have to face them. You have to deal with them. And if you feel like the only benefit, there's a benefit, right, for not solving these problems and removing these obstacles. And if the benefit is you get the time and attention from other people just to listen to you about what an unhappy situation that you're in, then you don't yet possess the maturity to do what it takes to solve a problem. We're talking about solving a problem. And I've said before, I finally got to the place in my mind where I was ready to just walk away from the house, the mobile home that was really falling apart anyway, and every penny that I have ever put into it. And I took my suitcase, my phone, my car. I had 2 jobs. I took my daughter and I walked away from everything. And you could say, this freedom comes with a cost or a price. But that was the only way that I could open the road for me to start on my own and be able and free to date other people. And we are here to strive, guys. We are not here to just have it all made easy just because we find someone who wants to get married. For me, it was about self-love and getting rid of some codependency that I had learned from my mother and wanting to be a source of support to my spouse who really was not giving the same amount of energy to the relationship. There was no real interest in my hopes, my desires, my interests, my needs, or whatever it is that we might want to do on the weekend or the summer. It was a sad situation. He was very focused on just working his job and earning Social Security credits. So you can get yourself legally tied to someone that turns out to be really incompatible with you. So let me just go ahead and talk to you about something I've recently discovered. And that is indications of love and marriage in astrology, in particular Venus. Astrology is a guideline. That's all. Those who say stay away from it because it's not good to look at it as fate don't understand that you can look at it as just a guideline. And you can still use your will. You still have free will. Just because something looks like the ideal situation, again, doesn't mean that it's going to be right off the bat. There can be some major obstacles that one or both of them have to address. So in looking at my chart the other day, I've learned there's two indicators. One of them is the moon and the other one is Venus. So today I'm going to talk about Venus. Venus is a very strong indicator of where your partner is going to be, because Venus is all about partnerships of all kinds. Now, the moon would represent the woman, and Venus would also represent a woman. Definite femininity, empress type of energy, healing, nurturing, domestic, all of those things. What I found was that now that I have my sidereal chart done, my Venus is not in Virgo, it's in Leo. And I've always thought a Cancer man or a Leo man would probably be really compatible for me. And in fact, when I look at birth dates of other people, I also can see, if I put the two together, you can look and see what's called synastry. If you do that yourself or have somebody else take your prospective partner, okay, and look at your charts to examine the synastry. How close is a Venus to the sun or the moon to the sun? The sun would represent the male and the Venus would represent the female. Let's see, if the sun is in the female's birth sign and the man's Venus is next to her, then she's probably going to be more of the not domineering, but take charge type of woman in all matters. And some people find this unnatural, but we have to not judge, because these two people have something that they need to experience through that. And if she's the one with all the money and the strength, and he's got other strengths, besides knowing how to manage a household or anything else, then, if that works for them, that works for them. But when I looked at where someone I knew that had a son in Leo, and then where my Venus was, it was an extremely close degree. And what you want to look for is the degree of how close the Venus and the sun are to one another. And if it's 10 degrees or less, it's an incredibly strong magnetic pull. However, it could be that one is looking to the other one to nurture the other one. And because it's so close, it can be what's called too close for comfort. And the Venus person can get burned by the sun or burnt out by the sun person. In which case, probably the Venus person is going to back off. In some cases, break off, separation, it could be off and on again, depending on whether the other person decides to grow and learn from the situation and stop being selfish or domineering. This is the challenge. If the challenge is met, this close degree of Venus and Sun can just really be awesome. If it's 10 degrees or more, they're going to have probably a very nice friendship. Thank you for the thumbs up. And possibly a wonderful marriage. Venus and the Sun are about manifesting. If you know anything about astrology or magic, if you want to fulfill dreams, you want to use Venus and the Sun. And so there can be a lot of manifestation of the creature comforts and luxuries and things that are pretty and attractive. And the emotional compatibility is there. but they have to learn not to be codependent upon the other. One cannot sit and listen to the other talk all the time about themselves. And the other one cannot do nothing but turn themselves into a housemaid and a caretaker for everybody, right? This should be the king and the queen, not the king and the slave. And this takes maturity. It takes some life experience in relationships or dealing with yourself and your own issues. If you've had relationships that aren't working because you're selfish and you're not willing to take responsibility for, what do you want? What do you like? What are your interests? What are your hobbies? What are your needs? You've got a serious family problem going on right now, and you kind of have to chip in or just take a side seat for a while. And if someone just wants to be the center of attention all the time, then unfortunately, a close degree of Venus and Sun is just not going to work, no matter how beautiful they say it is. It is a signal of a divine connection, a soulmate connection. What is it that these two have to learn? If this one is not going to learn to stop nurturing and caring in a codependent way, they're going to become unhappy. And if this one doesn't stop being selfish and, impertinent or whatever, one of them is going to move away. And until they realize that this is not the way a healthy relationship should be, and they, stop it, they're not going to realize all of the wonderful things that could happen with the Venus-Sun connection. So Venus is the indicator of emotional compatibility and marriage. But, there's such a thing as using your will to actually move the planets. And if one person will focus on their will and stick to their guns, they may actually get the Venus to move a few degrees away. And it might take a year, it might take a year and a half. But as this person feels the light of the Venus person moving farther and farther away, if they really and truly want to have that back so their life is better, then they will listen and they will break that pattern, stop that pattern, and create good habits and good patterns for a healthy, harmonious relationship. Those are the challenges of life and relationships. And I think that men especially have a hard time admitting that they don't necessarily understand what it means to respect the woman as their lady or a representation of the goddess, especially if they come from a religion that's just heavily patriarchal. So it can require quite a lot of change on one of the person in that situation. And if it only serves to um, teach one person not to get into that type of a situation again, and the other one just refuses to change, then that's just what happens. This sort of a divine contract that was in place from the Creator can be broken off forever and ever. And the lesson is, I refuse to change for one of them. The other one said, I refuse to go back to being smaller while the other one shines brighter. That's not fair. So I don't know who you are. Maybe you were here the other day. Maybe you are willing to say your name or not. But I'm going to change the name of this live stream to love spells and astrology, indicators of love and marriage. And so I guess really I don't have anything else to say. If nobody is here, this wasn't planned, and there are no questions. Like I said, the other indicator in your chart would be the moon. Honestly, if I had a chart done from my previous partner and mine by a sidereal astrologist years ago, I would not have married him. The hard lessons that I had to learn, I learned. And for those of us that have paved the way, hopefully others will listen and their lives will be easier. You don't have to go through a bad marriage to learn that you're codependent. You can find that out through your friends and family, and then you can go to therapy. Or you're in a good relationship where your partner says, I love you, but you need to work on your self-esteem. And they do, and they're very supportive. You don't have to grow by being in a bad relationship. So, yeah, I would not have married him. It was, my Venus was so far from his sun. Really, it was like, the dark side of the moon. And there was only a very little compatibility in the beginning for a short period of time. And I would say probably for only 3 to 6 months. And that was a connection psychically that was there for that amount of time because we were honeymooners, and we were very intimate on a regular, like every day practically. So, but that's not an indicator of a long-lasting compatible relationship. It's just not. You cannot build a relationship based on sex. And a lot of us have trouble with that. And a lot of women, they give it up in hopes that this person is going to become so enamored with them that they will gain a partner and feel a sense of security. And all of this is false. That has to come from within. If you have that first, you have a much better chance of finding someone who's right for you and dealing with whatever little things come up in the marriage. So unless anybody has anything to ask me, thank you for coming. And yeah, the safest way is to make sure that you already have a place in your life that everything is open and ready for you to meet somebody new. You can do a road opener spell and call on the deity and find someone who is better. And then if you can get their sidereal chart done, find out their birth date, right? And then have a sidereal astrologist take a look at it and say, man, you guys are so far apart, I wouldn't get married, because whatever it is you have to learn, you can probably learn through somebody else in a more compatible, harmonious marriage. All right? Namaste. Blessed be. Thank you for coming. And I will see you maybe in a couple of days or Sunday at 7 o'clock